Now tuned into the greatest.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The best sports podcast there is.
Yes, sir. You heard it here first. The best sports podcast there is, all the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. We got a great episode for you today on May 16th, 2022. The playoffs. We're not talking second round no more. These teams are advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Finals, so it's about to be a battle. Cannot wait to touch on it. But as I always say, why wait? You know how I like to do the show. Let's go ahead and jump into some news before we get too far into our topics. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hit you with some news for the run. All right, so for news for the run on May 16th, 2022, President of Basketball Operations for the 76ers, Daryl Morey, says head coach Doc Rivers will return as head coach for the 2022-2023 season. Now, this may be a good thing for some people, opponents or possibly teammates that we're working their favor, but I definitely know some people who are not happy about this decision here. But congrats to Doc Rivers keeping his job. All right, yeah, congrats to him. Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, they turned the heat all the way down as they put the Phoenix Suns away for good in a big time blowout in Game 7. They won 123-90. And the Dallas Mavericks, they'll move on to the Western Conference Finals and play the Golden State Warriors. We'll touch more on this game later on, but for now, that's all you guys are getting. And the Boston Celtics put the Milwaukee Bucks down as they won Game 7, 109-81 to move on to the next round. And I just have to say, I called it. I called it, and I brought the clip this time. That way we can just go ahead and play it. I ain't even got to convince you that I was right. But just remember, there's a reason that you continue to listen, and there's a reason that you're listening, because it's not that, oh, you think he's cool. It's because I actually know what I'm talking about. But here's the clip. Games that it will go to, so to be safe, I'm saying Celtics in 7. Ultimately, this series is really just going to come down to the simple and tedious thing. The simple and tedious things. Now, the Boston Celtics, they advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they will take on the Miami Heat. That's going to be a hell of a series right there. But the Boston Celtics, they attempted the most three-point shots in the playoffs so far in Game 7 with 55 three-point attempts. They went 22 for 55, which is 40%. So they actually did not do anything bad when it comes to shooting that many three-point attempts. And it was really a hard-fought game. And I'm going to touch on the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics series in just a second. But there's just a few things I got to mention in this Game 7. Now, we know right off the bat, the Milwaukee Bucks, they did not play good. They didn't play good in this series, or this game, I should say, in Game 7. They did not play good in Game 7. They were struggling offensively, and as some of you may know at this time, no way in hell you're winning a Game 7 when you shoot 4 for 33 from the three-point line. It's just not happening. I don't give a damn who you have on that team. It's impossible to win a game when you shoot 4 for 33 from the three-point line. But some may say, okay, well, if their offense was clicking, then they may have won. But no. That's not even the true reason why I believe they actually lost this game. Here's where they really struggled. They struggled because they did not make the adjustment to put emphasis on preventing the three-point shot when the Boston Celtics started knocking down threes. Because you look at the game plan early, and the game plan was to let people shoot threes, to let the Boston Celtics die by the three-point ball, more particularly Gus Williams. Gus Williams was the one they wanted to shoot the ball. They left him open many, many times. He shot 18 three-pointers in Game 7, and he made 7 of them, but he started off rough. So they was letting him shoot. But when he started to knock a few of them down, we never seen an adjustment. They should have made the adjustment right when he knocked his second open one down. That tells you he's back in a rhythm. They're not going to die by the three ball how you wanted them to and how you kind of handed them the option to keep shooting threes. it backfired. They started making their threes. And not only was he making his threes, you had Jason Tatum making his threes. Jaylen Brown was making his threes. Marcus Smart. You had Al Horford. You had all kind of people on the Celtics that started making their threes. And that's ultimately what killed the Bucks, because they waited too long to make that transition back into, let's protect let's force them to drive inside instead of shooting so many 3-pointers this game. But other than that, the Celtics played good basketball. They played great defense. They did their thing. They made it tough on the Milwaukee Bucks to even come back. And what more can you ask for that Boston Celtics team in a closeout game playing at home? They did exactly what they needed to do. But here's the harsh truth. Here's where the harsh truth comes in with the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics, since these two teams are going to be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics are going to win this series in 6. There's not a single doubt in my mind that they're not going to win this series in 6. The Celtics have a better team. They have better personnel individually, and they have better personnel as a team, and they play better as a team than the Miami Heat. When you can compare these teams by personnel, each person on the team, depth chart, on a roster, on paper, however you want to do it, if you compare it that way, the Celtics are better. If you compare it by efficiency, the Celtics are better. If you compare it by how well they play with effort and intensity, I'm still giving it to the Boston Celtics, because we've seen this team fight and fight and fight with consistency, not just fight and maybe end up losing a couple games, because obviously that happens. But we've seen this team fight and fight, and not only did they pull out these close games, but they were consistent. And just not only the stars either. Not only the stars. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were not the only people who were consistent. You had Marcus Smart there. You had Al Horford there. You had Tice there. You had Williams there. You had the rest of these role players on the Boston Celtics step up big time. But let's look at the other side of that, because I know some of y'all are thinking, well, Miami Heat, they got good people. They got Bam Adebayo. They got Tyler Hero, 6th Man of the Year. They got these good people too. And you're right. You're absolutely right. They have good players on their team, but they're just not as good as the Boston Celtics. That's all it is. And then from what I see with this Miami Heat team, the main reason why I say it's going in 6 is because what I witnessed last series with the Miami Heat, from their perspective, one, they shot terrible on the road. Don't forget, they shot 7 for 30 in game 3 against Philly and 7 for 35 in game 4. Yes, I'm going to hold them accountable for that. Absolutely. And what tells me, what is something that's going to tell me, it's going to be even different when you're playing against a better defense with better players, better offense, more hustle, more intensity, more tenacity, all of those things. What can you really throw at me to convince me that, the role players will be different this time? They'll be more consistent this time when they're playing a better team with a better defense and better personnel. It makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. So with that being said, man, the Celtics are easily winning in 6. I would be very surprised if this series goes to 7. Just telling the truth, I would be very surprised. But stick along with us, man. We got some more great things coming up here. We're definitely touching on this on the Phoenix Suns game. That was crazy. The Dallas Mavericks and Phoenix Suns. We got some things to say, especially because we had Pat Beverly. We had all kind of people losing their minds about this. But I'm gonna just tell you exactly what the case was and what really happened. So stay tuned. We're coming right back from the break. Hang in there. We'll be right back. Now, just because you're busy doesn't mean you got to be stressed. I'm crazy busy right there with you, but it can be easier. Next time you're on a run, just make it more fun and listen to The Run with Manny Wilson.
Now tuned into the greatest.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The Run, the Manny Wilson podcast.
To your speakers and
The best sports podcast there is.
The best sports podcast there is. You heard it here first, all the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. We got some more news for you before we jump into the Dallas Mavericks and Phoenix Suns, and then even more, the Dallas Mavericks and the Golden State Warriors. But former Los Angeles Lakers head coach Phil Jackson has said the Lakers should look to trade LeBron James and build around Russell Westbrook. Yeah, we don't know what's going on with him. Somebody need to check on Phil Jackson. Maybe he's been using. Maybe he's been juiced up. We don't know what's been going on with him, but somebody need to check on Phil because that's an absurd take right there. That's wild. But in the meantime, Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks turned the heat all the way down as they put the Phoenix Suns away for good in a blowout Game 7, winning 123-90. In the Dallas Mavericks, they'll move on to the Western Conference Finals and play the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Dallas Mavericks, they advanced to the conference finals for the first time since 2011, and this is the 5th time in franchise history. It's 100% deserved. And as bad as people are talking about the Phoenix Suns, I do believe they just had a bad game. But yet this is not an excuse. So do not get it twisted. We're definitely cutting up on the Phoenix Suns right now. So do not get that twisted. Let me read off some of these statistics from this game because this was piss poor awful. This was absolutely terrible. All that stuff that happened in the regular season, I don't want to hear a damn thing about it. And this is exactly why I say regular season is the regular season and the playoffs is the playoffs. When you enter the playoffs, everything you did in a regular season needs to be erased. Why are we celebrating regular season accomplishments and stuff when you are in the playoffs and you're about to lose or you have on the front of elimination? We should not be talking about regular season at all. But with that being said, let me just jump into these statistics, man, because this is crazy. So Devin Booker, cut the music too. Devin Booker, he didn't make a single shot of the entire game until 5 minutes left of the third quarter. So he went quarter 1, quarter 2, and just about more than half of quarter 3 until he actually scored a bucket for the Phoenix Suns. He finished the game 3 for 14 from deep, which is also pitiful. Chris Paul didn't make a single shot until the third quarter of the game. Shot piss poor terrible. DeAndre Ayton sat himself out halfway through the game just for mental reasons or internal reasons, as the head coach said, but he finished with 5 points. But it gets better because not only did the Suns play bad, they decided they weren't going to play defense this last Game 7 either. And here's the fun part about this series. I will say, regardless of how bad the Phoenix Suns played, it was entertaining the first half because Luka Doncic finished with 27 points at halftime, and the Phoenix Suns only had 27 points at halftime. So that tells you how the first half went. But speaking more into it, and what I witnessed at watching this game, and what you should have witnessed too, but you didn't probably notice, but you might have paid attention to it, is the first half, I witnessed Luka and Spencer Dinwiddie play king of the hill with the Phoenix Suns. They went out there and isolated these boys to death. They straight up cleared out. Everybody go to the corner, stand in the corner. 2 people stand in that corner, 2 people stand in that corner. Let me just isolate Chris Paul at the top. They went for Chris Paul. It was obvious right there. But I mean, hey, he's the smallest defender on the court. And if you got it like that, why not? Why not make that mismatch? So they attacked him, and it was just hilarious to watch because they really played king of the hill. Spencer Dinwiddie and Luka Doncic, they balled out, and I don't think I've witnessed an intentional isolation that early in the game to set the tone in a very, very long time. And I just thought it was okay. Maybe they want to get Luka going early, or maybe they want to get Spencer Dinwiddie going early. But when I look at the clock and I see, damn, they've been doing this the whole first half, or they've been doing this the whole first quarter. It was just funny to me. But that's done and over with. So the Phoenix Suns, great season, but you got to come back with it next year. Congratulations to the Dallas Mavericks. And that's what everybody wants to hear. The Dallas Mavericks versus the Golden State Warriors. This is going to be a great matchup. I stated it very, very early on, right before the playoffs started. Anyone in the Western Conference can beat anyone. They're all competition. It's different from what we've seen in the West, or different from what we've seen in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference, they had much more stardom. We seen Giannis, we seen KD, Embiid, James Harden, and there were some upsets. So don't get me wrong, but those series were much more predictable for a first seed to beat a seventh seed or a third seed to beat a fifth seed, whatever the case is. But with the Western Conference, things were different because everyone is much more even. You look at the bench depth, it's even. You look at the team depth, it's even. You look at the stardom, it's even. You look at the coaching, it's even. The playoff experience, even. A lot more teams on the Western Conference was much more even. And because of that, that's why we just witnessed an upset with the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns. But people are wondering, is this same type of upset going to happen to the Golden State Warriors? It's going to be a great series, but I don't think it ends in an upset. This series does not end in an upset. One, because I believe the Golden State Warriors will transition better on defense in terms of making adjustments. They will make the proper adjustments to not let a team isolate you the entire game when clearly the game is getting out of hand. I highly doubt I would witness that from the Warriors. And if that was the case, they would get rid of the liability regardless of who he is or regardless of who that player may be for that particular time, where he's not a liability as much to that team. Because what the Suns did, they kept Chris Paul in. They literally let Luka Doncic and Spencer Dinwiddie baby this man play after play after play when they should have took his behind out just for some time, not bench him or completely none of that. Just take him out for some time and let him or readjust your defense pretty much. Make the Dallas Mavericks re-strategize. And that's where I think we'll see a breaking point for the Golden State Warriors, because they're not going to let that happen. People think right off the back, okay, they're going to attack Steph Curry, which they might. They probably will attack Steph Curry. He's the smallest guy out there, not the strongest guy when you guard a Luka Doncic, but the Warriors are not going to let that happen. And if they do, then that's on them. That's how they will get beat. Their main problem is going to be defending the screens in the ball game. That's going to be something that's huge, because that's clearly what the Dallas Mavericks has an advantage of when playing these other teams. But ultimately, the Dallas Mavericks do have to play defense, and they are going to have to guard little Steph Curry and Klay Thompson as well. So it balances out. But it's going to be a great series, and ultimately, this series here will end in 7 games for sure. It's going to end in 7 games. I have to go with the Golden State Warriors in 7 games. It's going to be another battle, a hard-fought series here, but it's ended in 7 games. Luka is going to be that guy. He's going to do his thing. And I say 7 games because the Golden State Warriors, they're very inconsistent. From what I've witnessed last series, they only had about 2 good games that I've witnessed against the Memphis Grizzlies. They happened to pull away with some wins, but that's not going to keep flying as the season progresses, or as the postseason progresses more and more toward the NBA Finals. We're going with the Golden State Warriors in 7. All right, so that is all we have for you today. I greatly appreciate you hanging with us, man. Be sure to share this with a cousin, a brother, a friend, a family member, auntie, uncle, grandma, stepbrother, stepsister, anybody, man. Go ahead and share this clip here. And be sure to follow us on Instagram as well at The Run Podcast. You can check out my personal Instagram as well at I am Manny Wilson. And again, I mentioned it last episode, but we got the voicemail service coming in pretty soon too. So you'll be able to dial in, leave your message for us, and we'll play it back on the show. Just make sure you leave your phone number and name, and we will be right there with you to talk about whatever you mentioned on the show. But with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate you. We will be back later on this week, and so on and so on and so on.